Welcome to the True Blues Review channel. Ho, 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 ho.
Hi guys, welcome to my very first ever review on YouTube, and today I have the wonderful, talented Mike Pollock.
Well, if you insist, thank you so much.
So Mike, you've been doing voiceover work for some time now. Would you like to give us a bit of a story about yourself and how you became to do what you are doing now?
Sure. As a child, I loved the radio, and I always wanted to be on the radio. So in the mid-1980s, when I was in college, I actually got some part-time radio work and realized that what I really loved best is not sitting and introing the greatest hits of, "Hey, it's Whitney Houston, everybody. Good morning, it's 7:20." It was doing those wacky character voices that weren't necessarily part of playing music, but doing commercials and stuff. And I said, you know something? The wacky comedy and character voices are more of what I enjoy, so let's see if we can't pursue that. So various employment changes along the road happened, and eventually it found me doing voice cover stuff pretty much full time.
Cool. Did you have any inspiration from other radio work?
Well, the legendary radio disc jockeys of my youth, Dan Ingram from WABC in New York, Gene Clavin, who is also a big New York personality and did a whole lot of character work on his own. He was famous for basically interviewing himself. He would make up a character and just interact with the character live on the radio, which was incredibly impressive and very amusing. Some of the other character guys that I worked with, for example, in Syracuse, a man named Bill Baker, who did a character called Bernice, which was basically him doing a high falsetto voice, also in the same interviewing himself type of style, which was very enjoyable. And then as far as animation, every cartoon I ever watched as a child, so the legendary work of Mel Blanc, Dawes Butler, naturally, and the entire cast of Rocky and Bullwinkle and Friends. A personal favorite of mine, both the show and the talent behind it.
Cool. So, were there any other cartoons that you watched when you were little, like Looney Tunes, or like you said, Rocky and Bullwinkle, Captain Caveman, or any of the Warner Brothers shows?
Yeah, the Warner Brothers shows, all the Looney Tunes, Merry Melodies that they would stick on before and after school on TV. We'd watch those. Kind of the Hanna-Barbera ones, but I'm embarrassed by admitting them now. Some of them really, in hindsight, with an adult perspective, not so well done. But yeah, sure, some of the classic Hanna-Barbera stuff like the Flintstones was good for its time. But yeah, any cartoon that I watched as a child, or any children's record. Kids' records were a big thing back before CDs came along and the internet came along. There were things called kids' records, which were often based on cartoons of the day, but also just people gathering around in the studio and making up some scenario of, oh, we're in a school now, we're going to learn some stuff in this schoolroom on this 28-minute record that you're about to enjoy. Even the crappy work on some of those kids' records, I realize now, was actually a great influence to me, subliminally, if not liminally.
Cool. So going back to your your radio work, so what sort of particular radio work did you do?
I was a part-timer at most of the radio gigs that I had. I would do overnight and weekend work for my first real live disc jockey thing on the local FM station, playing the best mix of your favorites. And then I would also do some fill-in work on the news talk station on the AM side, and I would hosted the midday show for, I think, a summer, doing little trivia games and introducing older styles of music for the older listeners. I was a production director for a while at a rock station, which didn't end well, as I was deemed not rock and roll enough, which I guess I could have told them that. And then for a while I wrote show prep for a syndication company, so the wacky comedy bits and song parodies and crazy news stories that came out of your local disc jockey's mouth may have in fact come out of my brain at one point.
Cool. So when you started, when you were getting into radio work, what came next? Was it straight into dubbing for animes, or was it commercial work?
It was the radio stuff. There was pretty much commercial work at the radio station at the time. Essentially, they expect you, if you're working at a radio station as a disc jockey or air personality, you're expected to also be free labor when it comes to producing commercials. So I would produce commercials, do wacky voices, when other people were producing commercials, occasionally write my own commercials for a client if that request should come up. Eventually, I did some off-site work where other recording studios in town would call around to local radio stations making talent requests, and I would go out to another studio and do some stuff. And I did that in both Syracuse, New York, and then Rochester, New York. In Rochester, I was the voice of the big local amusement park for a summer while I was there, which was very cool. And then eventually, when I moved back into the New York City area working for the radio syndication outfit, then I started sending my demo tape around to the 4Kids type places and got animation work and got some other agents to do commercials and narrations and audiobooks and all sorts of stuff.
So it was kind of like a backwards and forwards kind of situation, going between station to station doing different stuff.
Yeah, and eventually realizing, oh, well, who needs the pesky disc jockey aspect of this job when I could just do freelance voiceover work for anyone and everyone. So at this point, I will work for anyone who pays me.
Fair enough. So at what point did you stop radio work and move on to voicing or dubbing cartoons and animes and video games?
My last tenuous connection to radio ended in 2008 when the radio syndication gig fell through. So since that time, I've not been officially in radio, although I'm welcome at some radio stations at whenever possible. I podcast a local radio show for a guy, and I'm welcome on his show at any time. But since 2008, it's been voiceover exclusively, and that's been commercials, animation, promos, narration, audio.
Would you like to start your own radio show again?
It's possible. Radio, as I remember it, is non-existent. Now it's the podcasts of the world that are today what radio used to be. So I guess if anything in these days, I would start a podcast of some kind so that not only do you not have the pesky oversight of these suits in radio, but you can do a show the way you want to with the people you want to and make it what you want to be. And there are people that have already blazed that trail. For example, the Mike O'Mara Show, an excellent podcast from people who used to be in radio, have for various reasons left radio, and they're now just doing 1 hour a day of essentially the concentrated version of their radio show the way it should have been, without that pesky music in the way.
Okay, cool. So what was your very first animation or anime that you ever dubbed?
The first professional animation thing, at least when I got back to New York, was for a live-action video called Little Tug's Big Adventure. It was live-action video footage of boats in New York Harbor, and I was hired to voice all of the male characters. They tried me on some of the female characters. My version of female characters didn't really work for them, but I did at least get the male characters. That piece of artistry is now available if you're desperate enough on a VHS tape, which you can pay a huge amount on Amazon because it's a rarity. But some people, I guess, were lucky enough to have the actual first-run copy, worth about $5.99.
Cool. Could you possibly give us a little taste of what your voice acting work was like when you were doing that?
Sure. I basically played Little Tug, which was this kind of little sprightly character who's a little kid. And I played some other, like an old tugboat type voice. I've actually watched the show in a while. Sorry, guys who produced it. But yeah, just various boats of various kinds. I played sort of a bad Jim Nakin, like fishing boat guy, as I recall. I'm surprised no one's burned it for YouTube, because it's really better to see firsthand than hear me try to recreate it from memory, of which I have none.
Fair enough. So I guess we can move on to some questions that the fans have to ask now.
Sure.
Windows 098 asks, how long have you been the voice of Dr. Eggman?
Since 2003. Hang on, I must look that up. Hang on while I Google myself. Children, please avert your eyes. Let's see. And Googling, just a moment. And let's go here. I believe my Wikipedia entry discusses the Eggman thing. Starting with the 2003 premiere of Sonic X. So yes, 2003.
Okay, cool. Was that, actually no, going away from the fan questions, was that your big break of being Eggman?
Yes, that was the first time I was exposed to Eggman, the first time they were recasting Eggman for the cartoon and for the video games, and the friendly folks at 4Kids with whom I had already done work in Pokemon and Ultimate Muscle and Kirby Right Back At Ya, and promos for Foxbox at the time. At least one of the producers said, you know who'd be a really good Dr. Eggman? Mike Pollock, let's get him. And they had me come in for auditions and callbacks and trying to convince the folks at Sega that I was the man for the job, and I guess they eventually did, which is very cool.
Okay, cool. Super Ninja asks, have you met any of the other voice actors in the animes or games that you have dubbed?
I've met the people that I work with in New York. We generally record separately, but I'll meet people while passing from one booking to another. So as I'm coming in, someone else is leaving. Hey, hi, great, how you doing? So good to see you. Fine. And as I'm leaving, someone else is coming in. Hey, great, hi, good to see you. How you doing? Great, dude. We occasionally will meet for various social events, either good times or bad times, but for whatever reason, when we can all get together, and that's always nice. The current people on the Sonic video games are all in California. I am not. So we not only record separately, we record on different coasts. But I have met Kyle Bear at a convention once before we were working on a game together, so we didn't really have much in common to discuss. Should I meet him again, I guess we can discuss Sonic briefly.
So is that the way that you can meet the other actors, is through conventions?
If I'm not working with them directly in the same city at the same studio, the only other way I would tend to run into them is at a convention somewhere in the middle of the country or in the West Coast. Should any of the fine West Coast cons have me out, hint, hint, that'd be great.
Okay, cool. Next question. The Pink Blob, which I'm guessing is a Kirby reference. What sort of characters do you voice the most? Good guys or bad guys?
Generally, it seems bad guys, but I tend to, being the character actor that I am, wacky characters of any kind. So I'm known, I guess, for the bad guys of Dr. Eggman, but in recent works, I've been just comic relief for various characters. I play, for example, a bumbling attorney in one cartoon. I play a bumbling scientist in another cartoon. And they're not really evil, they're just goofy and a little nerdy sounding. So I would prefer not to be typecast, because that way it's more job opportunities if people realize I could do all sorts of stuff.
Okay, so it's more based of... So you're more based on a kind of deeper toned voice?
Generally, but again, it depends on the character. There's Ella the maid, who is anything but a deeper tone. Ella, of course, is up here, and this is just me doing this voice. So that's not necessarily villainous. That's not necessarily male, even. But I'm a character actor, so I do a whole bunch of voices, so it's whatever the need is. I'll audition for a role, and if that's the sound that they want, then they'll take me and I'll do the work. That's swell.
Okay, cool. Next question is from I Choose You, Pokemon, obviously. What characters did you voice in Pokemon?
My first role on Pokemon was as a grandfather in an episode from early 2001, I guess. Then the first recurring role that I got, well, I was a couple of just walk-on characters in various episodes of people that the team would meet as they were traveling through their various towns, and I was just random guy A or guy appearing in one episode B. Then the most long-running thing on Pokemon was 2 seasons as the narrator. I refer to myself as the interim narrator because the original narrator left. I was given the role for a couple of years until Pokemon was taken away from the folks at 4Kids. 4Kids could not, the 4Kids talent couldn't work on the series for another couple of years after that. So the original narrator basically got his job back. So I was the I was the filling of the sandwich between the original narrator. So I was the interim narrator. And then since the cast changed and the production company changed, I've come back as other various characters. I was the only character that I did on both the 4Kids and the new Duart production was the judge, Mr. Contesta. I was Mr. Contesta for 4Kids, and then production changed, and Mr. Contesta came back, and they said, "Hey, you were Mr. Contesta before. Come do it again." And then since then, I was various other trainers and scientists and stuff. I think some good guys, some bad guys, whatever they hire me to do.
Okay, cool. This isn't actually much of the question. It's from Lee Glaus, and he asks, "We think you are a legend."
I disagree. You're wrong. No, you're absolutely wrong. Thank you so much. Thank you. I humbly accept your lovely wish.
Fair enough. And apologies if I pronounce any of these people's name wrong. This is from Temek the Hedgehog, who asks, "How did Sega find you, and how did you become Dr. Eggman?"
Sega didn't find me. I was presented to Sega with Sonic X by 4Kids. So 4Kids was casting the anime in New York from the New York-based talent pool, and they knew of me, and they said, "Boys, he'd be really good. Let's get him to audition and re-audition until Sega agrees that he'll be really good." Then when the pesky cast change happened, and they left the New York folks behind and went with West Coast people again for the games, I was asked to re-audition, because I'm guessing, I don't know this for a fact, but I would like to believe that these Sega people knew of me from before, looked me up and said, "Gee, we'd like to have him re-audition again, because we'll see if there's anyone who can do this any better." And I'm guessing since they hired me again after I re-auditioned, the answer to that was not really.
Fair enough. Sega fan 342 asks, "What's it like to voice classic Eggman in Generations, and what vocal changes had to be made because some sound somewhat different?"
From what I recall, and it was about a year ago that I recorded for that game, the discussion in the studio at the time was Sega says there's no real difference between the sound of the two characters. So I basically just did the same voice against myself. And I'm guessing because we recorded the characters one after the other, that they may have sounded slightly different, only because a few minutes of time had progressed. But they weren't supposed to sound different. So I guess if they did, I was doing it wrong. But it worked for them, so it works for me.
Okay, cool. English and Proud asks, "Do you watch the cartoons you voice?"
I watch the cartoons that are on TV, or at least I did when, for example, Sonic X was in first run, and Ultimate Muscle, and Kirby, and Go-Go Riki, and Viva Pinata. Nowadays, the cartoons that I'm in, for example, Pokemon, it's if I'm doing a one-episode thing, trying to figure out when the episode was recorded versus when it's going to air, and keeping track of when it's going to air, I'm less likely to seek out an individual episode. Fortunately, my son tends to be watching Pokemon now, so my son and daughter. So if they happen to hear me in Pokemon in one of the new episodes I was in, they can say, "Hey, we heard your episode today." Well, great, isn't that swell? Sorry, I missed it. The games, since I'm not a gamer, I won't seek out the games myself. But again, my children have various Nintendo devices, so I've heard myself in the various Sonic games recently. So I don't seek myself out as much, but I will stumble upon myself in various things, especially radio commercials. I've done some radio spots recently, and I end up hearing them on the radio first before I know anything else about them. So that's always cool.
Okay, cool. The Boy with Red Shoes asks, "When you first became Eggman, did you take any inspiration from the other voice actors, for example, Jim Cummings, Gary Chalk, or Dean Bristoff?"
I was given a whole bunch of audio files of Dean Bristow to try and do a vocal match for. So when I was auditioning more to the sound of Dean Bristow. If you listen to the first few episodes of Sonic X, in fact, as with many characters in animation, the voice settles in over the episodes. The first few episodes of Sonic X, Dr. Eggman is a lot deeper and down here, and rare, because I was a lot closer to Dean Bristow. But eventually I realized that there was going to be more comedy in the scripts that staying down here would allow. So it's tough to be in one place vocally and have wacky comedy happening. And eventually the direction I was given as well by the director is to do a lot more peaks and valleys. In fact, the vocal reference I was given was Jiminy Glick, the Martin Short character, because he often starts up way out high and then comes down way down low. So since that's the kind of sound they wanted, I knew that I couldn't keep in the Dean Bristow range for long. So yes, it started more like Dean Bristow, but then a few episodes in settled into something that was more comfortable for me vocally and more comfortable for me with the material.
Okay, cool. So you kind of made Eggman as partially as your own character, basically.
Yeah, I would say that, and even in the later games, some of the games that had a darker tone, as I was reading the script of the game, I realized, well, I can't go with the comedy peaks and valleys, so we've got to go a little more intense. So I went, I guess, a little back towards the Dean Bristow mode for the more violent and graphic games.
Okay, cool. That one ring asks, what got you into voice acting / radio work? We kind of went over that, so can you put it into a nutshell?
Sure. I loved radio as a child. I also loved doing wacky voices as a child, and realized that when I got into radio, the thing that I loved the most was doing the wacky voices. So you can't always get away with doing wacky voices as just a DJ, but making commercials you can, because commercials are always filled with wacky voices. And then I realized, well, who needs the radio part when you could just go and do the commercials and the cartoons and the narrations and the audiobooks. And that's what I'm doing.
Okay, CJ asks, well, that's an easy name to say, how did radio work lead to voice acting for games, anime, and commercials?
Redundancy much? It doesn't lead to it directly, but enough radio people realize that they can do more outside of radio. So they branch out. You build a demo tape with some of your best character work, you shop it around. And if people want to bring you in for auditions, then they do. So there's not a direct relationship, but there's definitely an indirect relationship. With me, I built up enough of a character reel from the various characters that I had done. So my animation reel, unlike my commercial narration and promo reels available on my website, the commercial narration and promo reels are essentially manufactured. I was reading scripts just that I had not actually recorded for a commercial, but we recorded for a demo reel. I've since done many commercials since then based on the work acquired from those demo reels. But my animation reel is completely made up of stuff that has actually aired somewhere.
Okay. Vicky asks, what's it like to play a bad guy in Sonic or any genre that you've voiced?
It's very cathartic. If I walk into the studio with any type of aggression living within me, by the time I've yelled in a microphone for an hour, I'm pretty much aggression-free for at least a few days.
Okay, cool. Motorbug 413 asks, with the wider range of animations you've dubbed, e.g. Pokemon, Sonic X, Kirby Right Back At Ya, which one have you had the most fun at dubbing?
I like the voices that make me laugh. So, Ultimate Muscle was the first cartoon that I got to use the voice of Meat, which is basically a truck driver from New York who sounds like this. That voice just makes me laugh hysterically, and I was thrilled that I was able to do a gig where I could do that voice week after week. Then eventually in other productions at 4Kids, I was able to take that same voice and morph it into different characters. So, for example, the character of Bonaparte in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX is also Meat, but he's got a bit more of a sort of, let's call it an effeminate twist to it. But it's basically sort of a Harvey Fierstein. Harvey Fierstein essentially sounding like me, but less of a truck driver. And then going on to Big Oriki on Go-Go Riki at 4Kids was basically back to Meat, but without so much of the truck driver. And just more of this basic voice here that's a little more intelligent sounding without sort of the truck driver aspect to it. And just doing those voices made me laugh. That was tremendous fun. And also the stunt casting of me as Ella in Sonic X also made me laugh, because the fact that I was playing a female Latina maid character and doing this voice just made me hysterical because it was just so wrong.
Fair enough. You gotta love your job and what you do.
Absolutely.
God of Juice asks, do you have any control over how you voice characters, like how loud and different pitches and tones?
It's very much a collaboration. My ultimate job is to please the director and please the producer and make sure I'm giving them what they want. but I've got to bring my own skills to the party, as it were. So I will do something, and the producer will either say, "That's great, we love it, don't change a thing," or back off a bit, or make it louder. So it's very much a collaborative effort. I'm there at the request of the producer and the director, so I want to make sure that I'm doing what they want, but they want to make sure that they're getting what they want out of me. So it's very much, it's a collaboration.
Okay. Next question is from That Chaos Emerald that asks, what do you think of Mario?
I've never met him personally. I'm sure he's very nice.
Egg Robo 56 asks, do you like eggs, and if so, how do you like them?
I like them poached, occasionally made into an Eggs Benedict with a little dollop of hollandaise sauce, but poached, please.
I like mine fried. Kenai Has Pokemon asks, what was your first and also favourite game you ever played, and also do you still own it?
As I mentioned, I don't actually play the games because I'm not a gamer. I'm far too old. But when Ultimate Muscle, the video game, came out, based on the cartoon that didn't really necessarily deserve a video game, but I think there were two of them. It came out for, at the time, the Nintendo GameCube. So I went to my local video store and bought a used GameCube, just purely to plug into the TV, watch the game, and say, "Hey, look, it's a game. It really exists." Great. Turned it off. When the first Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games came out, they were demoing it at my local mall, and we happened to be in the mall watching a movie. We came out of the movie, and there was the display of, from, I guess it was, Sega was sponsoring this display, or Nintendo was sponsoring the display, I don't recall. But actually, yeah, I guess it was a Wii thing. So I guess Nintendo had a booth out saying, "Look, the Wii is here, and so is this game." And I said, "Hey, I'm in that game. I have no interest in playing it, but I told the guy demoing the game, play it as me so I can see what it looks like." So I watched Dr. Eggman playing tennis for about 2 minutes. I said, "Okay, great, that works, thanks."
Okay, cool. Super Katie asks, what's your favourite Pokemon?
I like the ones I've played, of which there was one I played, Hippowdon. So if I had to pick a favorite, it would be Hippowdon!
Okay, cool. Pancake Manic asks, what genre of games do you like? Action, adventure, puzzle? Well, considering you don't really play games, can you probably pick one at least that interests you the most?
Yeah, well, back when I was a child, back in the late 40s, not quite, back in the late 70s, early 80s, the only video game I would play other than the first Pong home set that we had for home, I don't even count that as being a game, but I played Trivia Whiz at the arcade, and it was such the niche and unpopular game that I played it so much that I would memorize the questions in the entertainment category and eventually just win the games by rote and work my way up to the top of the leaderboard because I had memorized all the answers. How sad. So I guess that's kind of puzzle. My wife likes to play casual puzzle games. I'm not in any of them, but if I had to pick one by marriage, it would be puzzle games. But for me, any game that I'm in is a swell game.
Okay, cool. Amy Forever Rose asks, what was it like to be the only one that stayed in the Sonic voice cast when Roger and Kay and the others joined the cast?
It was a tremendous honor. It was also slightly awkward when I had to run into my New York friends and say, "So, how's that casting situation going?" Because they had eventually at one point realized that I was still doing it, and they went, awkward.
Yep. Toot Toot Sonic asks, did you ever play Sonic in the 90s, or did you only just start to get in the franchise when you started voicing Eggman?
I was vaguely aware of his existence. I knew he existed. I had probably heard Dr. Eggman's name bandied about, but I only became intensely aware of Sonic and his friends when I started voicing in the cartoon. Okay,
final question. Sonic Fan 1984 asks, around the time when 4Kids actors got replaced, did Sega say anything to you about why they decided to keep you And also, what do you think of the new voice actors?
Sega didn't really say anything to me about it, about line. Sega didn't really say anything about it to me specifically. My only question, and I'm not really one to ask probing questions when it's none of my damn business apparently, but the only question that I really needed answered was, am I the only one? And that was only because I knew I was going to run into my former colleagues, on the street or in other studios, and should probably be aware of what the tone of the conversation would be. So when I was in the studio, the answer I got was, you're the only one from New York that we're aware of. I said, I see. So I don't know. Not really my concern. I'm just happy to still be a part of it. Thank you so much. And it's weird to give opinions of the new cast members just because it's of professional courtesy. They're all fine talents, and I respect the work that they're doing in Sonic and the work they've done before. I love watching other actors act and listening to the way they act and what they do and hearing what other people do. And I have no complaints about the new cast versus the old cast. They're all fine, talented people, and they're doing a fine job with the character. And basically, it's what Sega wants. So if that's what Sega wants, that's fine by me, because Sega wants me too, apparently.
Okay, and the final part of the question was, what do you think to the new voice actors?
That was answered in that previous part of the question.
Was it? Oh.
Yeah. I have no complaints about them. Professional courtesy. I'm not going to say, wow, that was a crappy job they did, because that's not the way I feel. But again, they obviously Sega liked them enough to hire them, and I'm pleased with what I've heard of their work. Haven't heard a great deal of their work because I'm not playing the game, but it's a business. It's just like any job. Some people will get the job, some people will not.
Would you consider meeting them in the near future, like at conventions, or just popping into, I don't know, Christmas parties or holiday events?
I'd always love to meet new acting friends. I'm friends with Roger Craig Smith on Facebook, but we've never actually spoken directly. But that's the magic of Facebook. Friend doesn't mean friend, really. But sure, if there was some type of social gathering and I was brought out to LA for that, or it was held in New York and everyone was brought here to New York, that'd be swell. But more likely I would meet someone at a convention somewhere in the middle of the country. Because again, we're on different coasts. And my general lifestyle doesn't take me to LA very often, and I don't know that any of their lifestyles take them to New York very often. So there's that little problem.
Going back to conventions quickly, would you ever consider coming back to Summer of Sonic in the UK?
I will go anywhere they have me. I'm not so particular. Sure, it was swell to go out there once, and I'd like to be able to go out there as a real life guest and have panels and see people and make it like a real life convention. So sure, they know I want to come back, and I hope they know that I know that they know that I want to go back, and let's make that happen.
Okay. And finally, we just got a couple of voice requests, which you're aware of. So, Super Katie asks, can you say any of the lines that you said in the Pokemon series?
The only one that really comes to mind is the voice of the first character I did in my animation demo, and that's the grandfather character. And the only reason is because I've heard it so often in the animation demo, and it goes something like this. The world's a different place than it was when we started the business, Ash. These days we have to compete with airplanes and email. Thank you. And then there's always the narrator, and the narrator would say things like, Ash and friends are on their way to their next gym adventure. Or words to that effect.
Okay, cool.
Oh wait, and then there's Mr. Contesta, which is always brilliant style. Thank you.
Cool. The Pink Blob asks, can you say any lines that the mayor of Cappy Town would say?
As mayor of Cappy Town, I am pleased and proud to welcome Kirby as our newest citizen.
Awesome. Pancake Manic asks, can you say time for a change of pace?
Time for a change of pace.
Cool. Two Tails asks, from Sonic Unleashed, how did you get here so quickly?
How did you get here so quickly?
And the final one, God of Juice asks, give a stereotypical reaction that Eggman would do when Sonic was killed in Sonic 06.
Well, it's about time.
Awesome. Mike, it's been fantastic interviewing you today, and I hope you've enjoyed it as well.
Thank you so much.
This more makes up for it that I didn't actually get to meet you in Summer of Sonic this year.
All the more reason for them to have me back.
Yep. Would you like to give a shout out to anyone, like the fan base of what you've done for them?
Sure. Hey, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Feel free to check out my website at itsamike.com, where you can buy the book that I wrote 2 pages of, and you can buy other merchandise and stuff that I did, and you can see me, and you can get a picture of me. You can also see me on Facebook and be my quote-unquote friend.
Okay, and you also have YouTube as well, which I found out a little while ago that you did a music video of, what was it, Lizzie or something?
Yes, when I was in the radio syndication biz, I was cranking out song parodies. I'd been cranking out song parodies before I was doing that gig as well, but for a while I wrote, several thousand song parodies of various lengths, and I would still dabble in song parodies as the inspiration strikes, and inspiration struck when the lovely Liz Taylor passed away. And I realized that her string of marriages and divorces very much mirrored, to a much larger extent, the great Tom Lehrer's song Alma, about a famous German socialite who had married some of the great artists and composers of her time. And when she died, Mr. Lehrer read her obituary and realized that it was so delightfully racy and full of such juicy, gossipy details that she needed a song, and he wrote a song about her. I realized the same thing when I was listening back to Liz's obituary on the radio and said, you know something? That's just like Alma. And because she had so many more husbands, the song ended up being much longer. But I did a full-length parody of it, and I had it animated by one of my voice actor friends, and it found a place on YouTube. And it's not the viral hit that I expected it would be, but it's not exactly of a popular musical genre, but it accomplished the goal that I wanted to, and I think I'm damn proud of it.
Okay.
I still have one more parody that's got to be done, that it's about another dead celebrity that is slightly overdue, but I've been busy.
Okay, well, I'll put a link in the description of the YouTube channel, and I'll be sure to subscribe as well. So, with that said, Mike, I hope you have a fantabulous Christmas with you and your family. And where did you saying you're going off to? A light show or something?
Yeah, we went to a local holiday drive-through light show this past weekend, put on by the one of the area Girl Scout troops, and it was a little tacky, but it was fun.
Okay, well, as long as you had fun, that's the main thing, and also the same to your family. Like I said,
thank you so much.
I hope you have a wonderful Christmas and your family, and I hope to have you here again in the near future or something, or meet you in person next year, if there is a Summer of Sonic next year, hopefully.
I will use whatever influence I have to get myself there, and feel free to do the same.
Would you like to give an outro speech or two of an Eggman voice?
Sure. Thanks for watching this video, because if you didn't, I would come to your home and hurt you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike, and I hope to speak to you again in the near future, and I'll see you later.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.